Today I'm making mini sourdough bread. Welcome to White Shadow Fare. Make it homemade and make it with love. Start by measuring out 665 grams of water. Make sure you're using a scale whenever you're making sourdough for the best results. To that, you're going to add 200 grams of actively fed starter. So you can see my starter is floating here. It's very fluffy and full of air because I fed it several hours ahead of time. Mix the water and the starter together. Add 950 grams of all-purpose flour. Now I use the handle of my spatula and I just stir to get the majority of the water incorporated, and then I flip the spatula over and get it into one cohesive mass of dough. You're going to cover it and let it rest for 45 minutes. At the end of that 45 minutes, you're going to measure out 19 grams of salt. I'm using a kosher salt here. Once again, be very accurate, and you need to work that salt into this dough. The easiest way to work anything into a sourdough is with wet hands. So you can either use a bowl of water that you dip your fingers in, or I just have a spray bottle that I use for whenever I'm making sourdough. And I'm just kind of folding the dough over on itself and doing kind of a pinch and squeeze action to get the salt in. You can see here I sprinkle a little bit, I work it into the dough, and then I sprinkle a little bit more salt on. So after it's completely incorporated, you're going to cover this and let it rest for 30 minutes. Now that 30 minutes is up, you're going to do your first set of stretch and fold. So you're stretching the dough out to the side and folding it over onto itself. And then when I'm done with that, I like to kind of shape it into a little ball and then let it rest for another 30 minutes. Now you're going to do stretch and fold number 2. And when you're done with that, you'll let it rest for 30 minutes again. Now our final set of stretch and folds for a total of 3 sets total. At this point, you're going to let your dough rest for 3 to 5 hours, depending on the temperature in your kitchen. A warmer kitchen, it's going to be closer to the 3-hour mark. A cooler kitchen, it might take 5 or more hours. Now you can weigh this out if you'd like to. I'm dividing my dough into 3 equal pieces. But you certainly could break this into even smaller dough balls. I just noticed that 3 was the perfect number for our family. Each one of these loaves will be the perfect amount for dinner, and then toast for breakfast the next morning for my family. But sometimes I do make them smaller, more of a personal size. Once again, always use wet hands, and you are going to pre-shape your dough. Now you're going to do the final shaping of your dough, and I am placing these in containers that have parchment paper. I just wrinkle the parchment paper up so it kind of conforms around it, and I'm going to be using just a regular bread pan here for 2 of them. What I find perfect about this is I can take one of these loaves and serve it for dinner, then we have it for toast the next day, and the other 2 are in the freezer, and then when I'm ready to use them, I can pull it out, and I find that I'm not wasting as much sourdough as I had been when I made a very large loaf. I place the 3rd loaf in just a small bowl. Then you're going to cover up your containers and put them in a plastic bag. Sometimes I just put them in one of the plastic bags you get from the grocery store. You just want to kind of keep as much air away from it as possible, and it is going to cold ferment overnight up to 48 hours. Then when you are ready to bake, you're going to set it at 450 degrees and place this in a Dutch oven. Make sure that you score your loaves. Bake covered for 20 minutes, uncovered for 18 minutes. I like to take the temperature of my bread. I'm looking for 210 degrees Fahrenheit to know that it is completely done, and then it will not be gummy when I cut into it 2 hours later. The parchment pulls right off of these, so when they come out, take the parchment off, put it on a cooling rack, and let them cool completely about 2 hours before you slice into them. And there's my loaf of bread. It's got a beautiful crumb on the inside, delicious sourdough. I hope you'll give this one a try. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me at White Shadow Fare.